Welcome, everyone. We are so pleased to bring you the final sold-out session of the 2020 Fall Speaker Series with a very special guest and former Brandon Knight. Today, we are coming to you live from WCG TV's studio. A huge thank you to WCG once again. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the current code red restrictions across the province of Manitoba and the devastating effects it is having on some of our small business network. Forcing some of our incredible small and medium-sized businesses to close temporarily in some of the busiest weeks of the year is truly heartbreaking. We know that a lot of businesses were relying on the Christmas rush to carry them through. These are stressful times for all of us. I realize that the decision of our provincial health officials to impose these restrictions on us is not a popular one, but the best thing we can do right now is to follow the advice of Dr. Roussin and his team until they can find a safe solution for businesses to compete on a level playing field. We will continue our dialogue with our provincial stakeholders on a daily basis, and we encourage you to share your thoughts, concerns, struggles, and suggestions for us to pass along. To our small business owners, please take advantage of any provincial and federal assistance programs that you can. Our chamber network across Manitoba has fought hard to ensure our business community would be compensated in the event of another lockdown. I am personally available anytime to help with this process, as well as any of the staff or directors down at the Brandon Chamber. There's also a recording of the session that was hosted yesterday by MNP in the Brandon Chamber discussing all of the programs at length. That was very, very useful. If you find yourself in a gap that might not have any funding available yet, please reach out to us as we can share your story as well. Upcoming events at the Chamber. Normally December is one of my favorite months for luncheons where we have our ugly Christmas sweater contest. But this year we are going to be doing it a little bit differently. So start getting your festive holiday sweaters ready and watch out for details in the next few days on social media on how we're going to do that. November 26th, 2 p.m., we have an event, Talk So They Listen, Crafting Powerful Communication Skills with Chloe Ellis of RBC. You can register for that one on the MIC to get the Zoom link, and that one is a pay what you can event, so it's available for everybody. Our first Friday coffee for December is December the 4th, 9 to 10 a.m. Again, you can register on the MIC with the Zoom link. For the Zoom link, there's no cost to that one as well, and they are incredibly informative sessions and gives you a great chance to network with other businesses and sometimes some great people from the province as well. So make sure you get on there. New member shoutouts. We have a couple of new members to recognize. Pet Mobile Vet Clinic, Muddy River Enterprises, Once Upon a Child, the Salvation Army Brandon Corp. And with that, I would like to give a special thanks to Westman Communications Business Solutions for sponsoring the speaker series and for WCG TV for making sure we are coming at you with great quality once again today. I think we are now going to take a quick video of Westman Communications. Over to you.
This year, Westman Communications Group celebrates the launch of Inglis, Rapid City, Minto, Haywood, St. Claude, Elm Creek, and Oak River, bringing our growing number of connected communities across the Westman region to 41. Westman is proud to provide services to underserved communities across the region. While we are happy to be celebrating this growth, 2020 also brought new challenges to our business and communities. This year, more than ever, our communities need us, which is why we decided to support all of our communities as part of our annual Connecting Westman initiative. This summer, we donated over $19,000 to charitable organizations across all of the communities we serve. Westman also supported its residential and business members during this difficult economic time by introducing our 90-day Connection Pledge. This was our commitment not to disconnect any member that was unable to pay their bills due to the COVID-19 pandemic and waive all late fees they may have incurred because of these disruptions. In addition to keeping our members connected, Westman increased the speeds on all our internet service packages by 20% during those 90 days to facilitate increased work, education, and entertainment taking place at home. Deemed an essential service, the Westman frontline staff have been an integral part of keeping our business running smoothly over the past 7 months. The hard work and dedication of the install and repair technicians, customer service representatives, and technical service representatives have been valued during this difficult time. With community and communication in mind, WCG-TV, in partnership with the City of Brandon, have been providing the latest updates in response to the pandemic on our WCG-TV channel, live on the Westman website, and on the City of Brandon's website. We are proud to be a locally owned co-op that serves our members and employs over 150 people throughout Manitoba. Thank you to the Brandon Chamber of Commerce and its members for your continued support.
That was great. Thank you so much, Westman Communications Group, as always. And today would not be possible without Assiniboine Community College as well, who have so graciously sponsored this session. ACC has been an incredible partner of the Brandon Chamber of Commerce for many, many years, and we can't thank them enough for everything they contribute to our community and to our workforce. And I believe we have Mark Friesen, the president of ACC, on the line here with us to bring us a few words from the college. Mark.
Great, thanks, Spencer. And Assiniboine is very pleased to continue to support the important work at the Brandon Chamber, probably now more than ever. I have four points that I'd like to make today, but to be honest, 4 points about the college, but I've got a different point that I want to make about to reinforce what Spencer has said about the current environment. And today I'm borrowing from my home province of Nova Scotia, where the mantra there has become "stay the blazes home." And so like others, I'm imploring folks at this time, if you can reduce your contacts, I think that's in the best interest of all of us in Manitoba to help get through this current situation. In terms of the pieces I'd like to put in front of you for consideration of the 4 points about Assiniboine, as part of today's address. The first one relates to what I see as the biggest challenge in front of the post-secondary sector in Manitoba, and that's that not enough of us go to college and university. We have the lowest rate of public post-secondary participation in the country. And so our board, with that in mind, in 2013, they challenged us if we could double the number of graduates at the college. And so we set out on that journey and we made good progress. And in 2018, our board rewarded us with an expanded goal to get 2,028 graduates by 2028. We've done fairly well against that. We've had about 58% increase in graduates, this year arriving at 1,514, our largest graduating class ever. But we do know there's more to do. In addition, the Premier has made it quite clear this year that as part of the economic re-engagement, that we need to find a way to make sure that post-secondary is very well aligned to the labor market, and has struck a task force in that with that end. And for us at Assiniboine, we welcome that, as you know, we have had over the last 5 years 35 new or renewed programs, and we'll launch several new programs next year as part of our program offerings, including Power Engineering Level 3 for the first time. And as we've gone with that increase in graduates to 1,514, one of the things that's important to see there is that they're doing well. You know, somebody might say, well, look, have you flooded the market? Well, we survey our graduates 9 months after graduation to see how they're doing. Do they have jobs? Are they in their field of study? You know, where do they live? What do they earn? And this year, the survey goes to field in April and May. So we went to field during the height of the shutdown from the public health orders. So you'd expect to see a little bit of drop in the numbers. But it wasn't the case. In fact, 92% of our graduates from last year had jobs, 82% of them were in their field of study, and 89% of them were living right here in Manitoba. So we were certainly very thrilled to see those kind of results. And further, they don't just come out of the gate well. We also survey students sometimes 4 years out. And so these the folks that we surveyed from the class of 2016 actually had a 30% growth in their income over the 3-year period between when they were last surveyed and this time. So in addition to getting off to a good start, they progress well as well. Now, having said that, as I said about the 1,514 graduates, we can't rest on our laurels. There's a lot more to do. And last year in November, when we sponsored the Chamber Luncheon, I came to you and I talked to you a little bit about our ambitions for expanding offerings in agriculture, certainly one of the key sectors for the economy of Manitoba. And I'll reinforce some of the key points that I made at that time. You know, by 2025, 1 in 5 jobs in agriculture could go unfilled, and that could cost our economy $725 million a year. So we know we need to do more. So we set out an ambitious plan to start a Prairie Innovation Center, which would help to increase the number of students we had from a little under 300 in agriculture to over 800. And I indicated to you at that time that I needed your help and that we'd be out talking to you about needing that help. And I have to say that I'm very thankful to the members of the Chamber because you've responded quite well to that call. In fact, today is National Philanthropy Day. And so it would be, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize that, you know, one of the heads nodding in the audience last year was Sunrise Credit Union. And we were able to announce last month that they were able to provide $1 million donation to kick off the Prairie Innovation Center. And so we look forward to talking to you in the months to come about others who've also stepped up to help us out on this goal. And then finally, when we look at the cumulative impact of all this activity, it's about what's happening in the economy in general for us as a result of Assiniboine. And so periodically we do economic impact studies. Our deputy minister recently requested that we update ours. We did so, and it found that we have a $612 million total economic impact. But probably easier to comprehend for most of us are what are the annual rates of return. So for students, it's a 13.4% annual rate of return. So not a bad return on investment. But for government and taxpayers, it's actually a 28.2% rate of return. And again, this relates in part to the growth of those 1,514 graduates. Less than half of those are as a result of core government-funded programs. The others have come as a result of contracts that we've been able to secure, full cost recovery programs, and other programs we've been able to put together to put in the window for Manitobans. And so government's getting a very good return on investment in terms of what it invests in Assiniboine. Finally, you know, maybe to the point that Spencer started off with, we know this is a difficult time for many in the business community. For some, your revenues might be down. For others, you're facing severe restrictions. And for others still, you might be shut down altogether. And we appreciate the toll this might be taking, whether that's financially on your business, your worry about your economic security and the health of your own staff, and possibly for some, worry about whether you can weather the storm for the business you built with your own hands through this pandemic. At the same time, I know you, like other Manitobans, are equally worried about what you see happening in the public health environment and what else is happening around us. So I think we all realize that both our personal actions and public actions are required to combat the spread of COVID-19. I feel for you on this front, and if there's anything that the college can do during this time to help support you for your current or future plans, please let us know. Stay safe, and if you can, stay the Blazes home. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mark. This morning, when I woke up, I was looking for a pair of socks, and it took me back to a few years ago when you had sponsored another luncheon, and these were sitting under all of our seats. So I have my ACC support on today, and we thank you for everything you guys do again for the community and how big of an economic impact you have here, and for everything you're doing. So thank you again, Mark, very much. That brings us to our main event of the hour. I have a wonderful position here in introducing our next guest. Chris started his career right here in Brandon, Manitoba as a mortgage agent. then eventually became a franchisee running 3 locations across Manitoba, funding nearly $100 million in annual mortgage volume. The call came one day that made him the youngest president of a national financial organization in Canadian history. As president of Centum Financial Group and Real Property Management, his brands are on pace to finance $10 billion in annual mortgage volume, and they just recently completed an acquisition of another brand, expanding the Centum network even further across Canada. Chris is a lover of Apple, Hawkins cheesies, video games, and he loves engaging with his 80,000 plus followers on Instagram. He has a wife and 2 beautiful children named Piper and Bo, who are definitely in his top 20 favorite things too. His mantra is simple: touch the heart, that's how you win. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Mr. Chris Turcotte.
Thank you, Spencer. You guys can hear me okay? Perfect.
We can.
Perfect, thanks. So I'm going to talk to you guys today about lessons I've learned over this whole magical little journey I've been on. So I spent my 16th birthday in the hospital watching my dad die. Yeah, my dad died on my birthday. And when he passed, my mom sitting in the chair beside me had this PTSD style stroke. She couldn't talk, she couldn't move, nothing. So there I was. I'm 16 years old. Happy birthday. On my left side, my dad has just died. On my right side, my mom is a zombie, and I am completely alone with no surviving family. That next school year, going into grade 11, was a nightmare. On my lunch breaks, I would literally run home and I'd have to look after my mom. I'd have to feed her, sometimes change her, because at the time I lived in Selkirk and we only qualified for home care 2 days a week. I would do that and then I would run back to school into my next class. And the crazy thing is no one knew because I was too ashamed to tell anyone. And the first life lesson I learned there was sometimes life is going to punch you right in the face. And you can either lay there or you can just stand up and try and figure it out. I was 23 years old when I was laying on the beach with some friends one day when the phone rang and virtually changed my entire life. It was the hospital. I said, Chris, your mom took a really, really bad fall. You got to get in here right away. Pack yourself a bag for a few days. We'll see you soon. Now, by then, I'm pretty familiar with the whole hospital thing. I know what it means when they ask you to bring a bag for a few days. It means you're probably not going to get out of there until someone's gone. And sure enough, 48 hours later, I'd lost my mom. And now I was literally, completely, and utterly alone. And the lesson there is you will be amazed at what life can throw at you. And somehow, with given enough time, you'll be okay in the end. But it took me 28 years to feel at home anywhere. And it was Brandon. When you lose everyone, you feel lost, alienated, like you don't belong anywhere. Brandon changed that. But the way it happened is kind of funny. At the time, I had been dating a girl for 6 years. She asked me one day, would you ever consider relocating from Winnipeg to Brandon, which I had never been to? Now, she figured I had a better chance of getting a good job in Brandon. And I had been dating this girl for 6 years. I figured I was going to marry her. And her parents were quickly becoming the closest thing that I'd ever have to parents. So before I knew it, we gave up our friends. I gave up a job that I loved, found a job in Brandon, and we were on a house hunting trip. But it turns out that when someone gives up everything for you, combined with the fact that you watch them lose everything, it's not good on a guilty conscience. Because about 2 weeks before we were scheduled to move, she sat me down and she had a confession to make. She had cheated on me. She was sorry, and she was really looking forward to a new life together in a new house in a new city. I literally ugly scream cried breakup songs, driving a U-Haul for 2 hours from Winnipeg to Brandon alone. And the lesson I learned there, life doesn't let up. You don't go through a certain amount of heartaches and setbacks and you've reached quota. You've got to learn to pivot no matter what life throws at you. You're going to get knocked down over and over again. I guarantee it. But every morning when your feet hit the floor, you decide, you choose, you have the power of choice on how you're going to react that day. Now I have a question. How many of you have left all your friends, packed up your job, got a new job, moved to a new city, only to have that job be eliminated in under a year? Because I have. So no sooner do I get there, I was working for Maple Leaf Foods, or actually McGavin's, Dempster's Bread. It's actually Canada Bread in Brandon, and they have a warehouse over on Park Avenue over in the industrial area. I pull into the parking lot one day and there's a black rented SUV. That's weird. I get out of the car, they get out of the car, and they proceed to tell me that unfortunately I was being packaged out, myself and every other executive in Western Canada, as part of Maple Leaf's effort to downsize during harder financial times. My consolation prize for this, I receive a check for 1 year severance. Not bad. I haven't even worked there a year and I get a year's severance, right? Yeah, except for the mortgage that I was in the process of applying for that kind of needed me to have a job if I was ever hoping to qualify for it. It was an interesting time, to say the least. So this next chapter of my life, pivoting a little bit, this next chapter of my life I like to call everything in my life I kind of owe to Brandon. So there I was. I'm an unemployed, non-contributing member of Westman society. And believe it or not, this is actually where my life began. So thanks to Graham Garden, the local realtor there with Remax, he introduced me to Scott McMullen. Scott McMullen at the time owned a mortgage brokerage, the Mortgage Center, which was right on the corner of 10th Street in Lorne. Well, I had the unfortunate task of calling Scott and saying, hey, listen, Scott, thanks for all your time, but unfortunately, I think I just wasted it. I've lost my job. And when the bank calls to verify my employment, it's not going to verify because, well, Scott goes on to tell me that the bank had actually verified my income 2 days prior. I guess the junior in HR wasn't privy to the fact that there was this big national layoff plan. If I wanted the condo, it was mine. Now I still think of that condo to this day. So our very first condo in Brandon was those old ones directly behind the Shoppers Mall. So on a commercial break, remember commercials, by the way, I could run out the front of that condo, across the street, down the stairs, into the back of the Shoppers Mall, grab my Tim Hortons double-double, and be back on my couch before the end of commercial break. Anyways, Scott goes on to then ask me a question which literally predicated my career from that moment. He said, listen, you told me you worked for the bank your whole adult life. You seem like a really personable guy, and you have a year's severance in your bank account. Have you ever thought about being a mortgage broker? Well, let's assess my situation here as a group. Oh, by the way, just recently married. I'm unemployed. I now have a mortgage, and I'm contemplating doing a 100% commission job, a job I've never done before, by the way, and in a city that I'm brand new to. I said yes to the mess. But that's where things got really, really interesting. So a lot of people don't realize, but the Canadian banking system is actually behind the scenes is in the dark ages, like literally. So a lot of the banks still use DOS. So like for Spencer and all the other millennials on the call, I'll stop for a second. DOS was this command prompt archaic system. It's a black screen, green glowing writing, and extremely limited by today's standards. And a lot of the back office functions that banks use today are still using it. So there I was, I'm 29 years old, bit of a tech guy, bit of a tech geek, social media geek, and I'm about to embark in an industry where I'm quickly finding out its slogan is notorious for saying, well, this is just the way we've always done it. And I couldn't do it. All I thought about was the efficiencies and everything else, but nobody wanted to hear it. I questioned everything. Why do we do this? Like, has anyone ever thought about doing this? Well, what if we implemented this and did that? No one wanted to hear it because they either saw it as a time suck or a money suck. And they told me, they're like, Chris, this is just the way it is. And I think for a lot of people, this is the TSN turning point, right? This is where a lot of people just shrug their shoulders and conform, right? Like, well, I guess that's just the way it is, so I'll just do it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't let it go. Like, If only we put in a little bit of tech, a little bit of automation, some systems and processes, our efficiencies would go up. Our time management would go through the roof. We'd spend half the time on the mortgages we were getting. We could use that time to get more mortgages, and there was ways we could do mortgages even faster. But a system like that didn't exist yet. So obviously in the spirit of time today, like the story of how I went from the mortgage center, an agent, to an agent at Centum, the brokerage and everything, it's a good story, but obviously I'm gonna have to speed it up. I'll fast forward to when I was running Centum Mortgage Choice in Brandon just a few short years ago, up until 2016. So a lot of you might not know this, but like Centum Mortgage Choice, like Brandon's little brokerage there, they are a beast on a national level. Out of 200 offices across Canada, they're often in the top 10 for the amount of mortgage units that they produce. Like I'm talking, they compete on a national level with Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. They hold their own every single time. And you want to know how we did it? You know how we did it back then, how we still do it today? I'll tell you. We leveraged systems and processes, embrace technology, and put in some automation. I'll give you a couple of examples. So way back in the day, we were doing paid Facebook, targeted Facebook ads in Brandon and surrounding areas before most businesses were even wondering why they need a business Facebook page. We were doing educational video content on YouTube. Then we negotiated to have those videos hosted on ebrandon.ca right on the homepage. And we tracked absolutely everything, especially our mortgage units. We tracked our units on a big whiteboard that's actually still in Mortgage Choice today. On the left side, we have all the mortgage agents. On the right side, we have their goals, and we track month to month, not just how they did this year, but how we're measuring during last year. We tracked it week over week, month over month, year over year. Everyone in the company knew what the goals were. It was full transparency. It was our goal to achieve together. And for the leaders on the call, there's a little bit of, if I could beg you to do anything, don't be afraid to like open the kimono and show your employees the real flag on the hill, right? If you pride yourself for having employees that really, really care, show them the united mission. Again, show them that flag on the hill. We were also ruthless with our tracking of our marketing efforts. So for example, every time a client did a mortgage application with us at Mortgage Choice, they still do it to this day, they interview the client and ask them how they heard about us, right? I found you on Google wasn't good enough, right? We drilled down further. Okay, you found us on Google, but where did that link lead to? Did it lead you to a blog? Did it lead you to a landing page? Did it lead you to a website? And we tracked everything. At any given time, I could tell you how much we spent on a marketing vessel, how many leads it got us, and our running ROI of that effort. And here's the brutal part, guys. We tracked it all on an Excel spreadsheet that we had to manually enter constantly. I used to vent to Ainsley Hyman. So Ainsley ran the office back then, still runs it today. I used to vent to her all the time. If only we could build something that made this easier, because this is just brutal. But unfortunately, local development costs were through the roof. And we were incredibly busy. It took a lot of work to be the littlest, biggest brokerage in Canada. But there was bigger problems that even systems and processes couldn't fix. The first one was data from the banks. It was embarrassing. Biggest banks in Canada, and they'd give you quarterly, mid-year, or year-end scorecards on how you're doing with their business. And the sad part, they were single-page PDFs, or every now and then one of the banks would be nice, come in with donuts under their arm and hand you a one-page leaflet. It was completely useless. There was no real-time data. There was no way to like map out how your business was doing at that moment in time at all the different banks. But an even bigger issue was nurturing, tracking, and marketing mortgage renewals. So for everyone on the call here that has a mortgage, your mortgage renewal is that magical time in the life of your mortgage where your term is up with the bank you're currently with, and completely penalty free. If there's another bank with a better offer, you can pick up and you can move to that bank. In Manitoba, the average mortgage is a 5-year fixed. So if I was your mortgage broker, that meant that after I closed your mortgage and after I was paid by the bank, I had to follow up with you, stay in touch, try to stay top of mind for 5 years before I potentially got your business again. I did everything. I poked, I prodded, I begged, I tried to lead by example, but it is incredibly difficult to encourage brokers to go on a 5-year journey of tracking and nurturing and marketing for a deal they might not even get. Like, there had to be an easier way, but there wasn't. And then the phone rang one day, except this time it wasn't a phone call that ruined my life. I got a call from the Turcotte Pacific Group, the owners of Centum Financial, is owner of this brand. They also own Century 21 Canada. We own Century 21 Asia Pacific, Uniglobe Travel, which is the world's largest travel franchise organization, and as Spencer said, Real Property Management, which is the nation's largest property management franchise organization. And they wanted to know if I'd be interested in running the Centum organization on a national level. They had me on a plane the very next day for a 2-hour lunch meeting. They had me back before dinner. It was the coolest thing. But the task ahead was daunting. Centum was struggling for a variety of reasons, and it was running at a financial loss. Now, those were really brutal times, because what I had to do after that lunch was they tasked me with making a 2-year transitional business plan on how I'd get the company out of this. Those are busy days. I would literally I'd be a mortgage broker all day long, and then at night, I'd sit there and build a transitional business plan for a company I might not even be running. But I knew, I felt in my heart, if I could convince the board to go all in on technology, we could potentially fix all those pain points that I saw in the industry. But I had to convince them. But if we nailed it, if we got it right, the only thing our franchise salesperson would need at Centum is a big enough catcher's mitt to catch all the people that would join us. Like, not only would we establish ourselves as a tech leader, but more importantly, we would stand out in the mortgage industry as being the only brand that intimately understood a mortgage broker's real problems, because there were our problems too. More importantly, we would be the brand that would be known for solving them all. And that's the next lesson. It's like, if you want to win, and I mean like really, really win, scrap your own agenda and go all in on other people. I know it sounds crazy, but if you genuinely and sincerely put others first, you'll never have to worry about winning again in your life. So the fact that I'm standing here lets you know how that went. I had their blessing. They were willing to risk it all and let me go all in on technology. And I was going to be the youngest president of a financial organization. And best part, I had no clue what I was doing. Not a clue. Literally from Brandon, Vancouver, with this responsibility, I didn't have a clue. But I had two things. I knew, and I was personally committed to solving a big, big problem for mortgage brokers. And I understood it intimately because it was genuinely my problem. And I knew what the end product needed to do. But the problem was I needed data. Much bigger problem was Centum's reputation. What was I going to do? Oh, hey, I'm the new kid working for the brand that's kind of dying. And hey, 30 to 40 banks across Canada, I know you don't share your data, but do you want to do that for the first time ever and share it with me? And maybe I can figure out what to do with it. It was hopeless. There was absolutely no chance of that happening. And then one morning, the answer hit me in the face. So when I accepted the position, they needed me right away. So I had to eject out of Brandon really, really quickly. So fast, in fact, that I actually still had some Brandon mortgage files that I was working on. So I'm sitting in Vancouver one day and I'm keying in a mortgage. I'm keying it in on a system called Filogix. Filogix is this centralized platform where all mortgage brokers in Canada and a lot of outside sales employees for banks use to key in their mortgages. Filogix makes its revenue for being the secure pipeline that takes the information from an outside salesperson at a bank or a mortgage broker and securely transfers it into the bank's system. Gets past firewalls and everything else. They get compensated for that. If mortgages close, obviously they make more money. Well, that was it. I didn't need the banks if I could somehow get the data from Filogix, because I would know everything. I'd know the mortgage broker. I'd know the application details. I'd know all the mortgage details. I'd know when it was submitted and to which bank. I'd know if it was approved and at which bank. I'd know if it closed and funded at which bank. But how was I going to get it? It was perfect. It was too perfect. But how was I going to get it? That was the big $1 million question. So in the sake of time and to consolidate this, because obviously I'm really, really excited to get to Q&A, the one thing I will say is I've kind of always prided myself, and I think through a lot of different things, I'm known for my ability to reverse engineer big projects and big goals. So after some time, I eventually found myself a tech partner that specialized in APIs, so application programming interfaces. They were able to build me a pipeline that I could reach over to Filogix, scrape the data, and then I could aggregate it however I want. That took a long time, but once it was done, the rest was easy. The actual interface and everything of the platform, that was the easy stuff. The result? Centum Financial Group was the first mortgage brand in Canada where their agents had real-time data. You could open your laptop and you'd see everything, how many applications you had on the go, where it went, which bank, how many were closing, how many had closed, which meant suddenly for the first time ever, you could track your revenues. You can forecast. Not only that, because I had the Filogix data, I knew the closing date and I knew the amount of the term. I knew how long the term was, which meant I knew the renewal date. With a push of a button, Centum agents could literally, there's an on and off button in our system. You could turn on automated drip campaigns that would market every person as their renewal date approached, which meant any Centum representative would never miss the opportunity for a renewal ever again. The innovation hasn't stopped. Since then, we've been putting in more and more APIs. So we now have APIs for things like e-sign. Right from within our platform, our mortgage brokers can send documents directly to clients and get them virtually signed. We also have the same thing for bank statements, where our mortgage brokers could send out consents that electronically allow mortgage brokers to get their bank statements right from the bank, saving the client a trip into their bank if they don't want to. Same goes with T1 generals and notice of assessments. We have it all. We have a marketing portal where they can log tickets, and we built an internal digital agency where they can request virtually anything they want. And then just last spring, our agents can now, through our platform, can submit directly to the banks. We don't even need Filogix anymore, something we relied on for decades. So they have their entire business either on their laptop or in the palm of their hand. So what were the results? Was this even worth it? Well, in 2016, when I came to Centum, we were funding $1.7 billion in annual mortgage volume. We were running at a loss. As Spencer said, we're set to fund over $10 billion in annual mortgage volume this year. And our profits are well in the 8 figures. As far as growing, we're the fastest growing brand in the mortgage industry. And as Spencer said, we just pulled off an acquisition. As far as industry recognition, we're the 2-time and reigning Canadian Mortgage Award winner. It's an organization that's voted on by our peers for winning Digital Innovator of the Year, leading the entire Canadian mortgage industry in technology. But the thing I'm proudest of, I don't care about the growth. And for any of you that know me, I don't care about the growth. I don't care about the accolades. The coolest thing, even long after I'm gone, is the fact that I got to name Centum's platform after my little girl. It's called Piper. So to recap everything life has taught me, life is going to try and break you over and over again. This is a dark time right now, and I love you all, but like, you're going to go through another dark time. I need you to promise me you're going to wake up in the morning, and even when you don't know where it's going to lead, you've got to keep putting a foot forward. I need you to remain curious. Always ask if it can be better. If you know it can be better, keep on it. Ask the questions. Ask every question until you have the answer. The flip side of that, never, ever settle. Promise me you're not going to settle when you know deep in your heart that something could be different. And then finally, my mantra, please remember that love, especially at a time like this, love is the best thing we do. Love yourself. Love what you stand for. Love what you do. Love everybody around you. And it took me 39 years of a pretty rough upbringing to realize, love your own journey, because it's the only one you got. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Chris. I'm sure I could speak for everyone on the line here when I say that we could have just probably listened to you for another hour. You could have just kept going and going. You have an electric, amazing story. I always find such incredible motivation in following your blogs, your social media, everything that you post. It always seems to have such value, and it resonates so deeply with myself, and I know with a lot of your followers. And there probably couldn't have been a more perfect time to have you on this call to talk to our membership and to our community out here, and just bring some hope and some optimism that that we can use these difficult times to kind of get moved forward. So thank you again for joining today. And now, as we always kind of wrap up the final 15 to 20 minutes of our speaker sessions, we've got some Q&A. There has been some questions come in from the audience, which are going to come over to me. And we do have a couple of questions that have come in from directors and from some of the staff and other members and things like that. But right off the top, Chris, we called this part of the series the Changemaker session. And we know that you've shaken up your own industry, and you obviously are a huge change maker. What does being a change maker mean to you, and what advice do you have to give others to become a change maker in their own life and in their own industry?
Great question. And first of all, I just want to start off by saying, like, you have no idea, like, a lot of you know my wife, Kirsten, and through this thing, the hardest part for us through this whole pandemic, especially with the fact that we can all work from home, we'd rather be in Brandon. Like, we miss everybody, like our closest friends and everything, going through so many setbacks. But to answer your question, Spencer, we're all change makers. There's just like, if you think back to the talk, there's just a very key difference, but I truly believe we all have it in us. The difference is we conform and we stop listening to the little voice, right? There are so many people in Brandon. Think of the innovation in Brandon, because it all stemmed from the fact that somebody was like, well, wait a minute, that's not right. And they didn't let that thought go. And especially now, the landscape is changing so vastly right now. Innovation, like, we don't even know what businesses are going to come out of this as a result of how the landscape has changed, right? So I think, how do you become a change maker? Stop muting the little voice. We all have it. I don't think it's a special skill. I think that, unfortunately, life, being busy, everything else mutes that internal change maker.
That's a great answer. We are going to touch on something you had mentioned originally in your story, but obviously we find ourselves in the middle of a pandemic, and obviously you've taken technology, and pushed it to the limits within your own industry. And we find ourselves telling our members that a lot of the time, that a perfect way to pivot and find new strategy is going to be in technology. And we all found ourselves kind of heading in that direction anyway as time progressed. But what advice can you give our members, and the most critical changes as it relates to tech, on how we can kind of effectively take tech forward with where we find ourselves in the world right now?
Yeah, well, you know what? I in the spirit of time, I didn't have a chance to elaborate. But the biggest thing for me originally, when I was in Brandon looking for tech, is, you're only doing so much business, you're only making so much revenue. And if you're trying to do something really, really big, the impression I had at the time was like, I don't have enough money for that. Because you hear these tech companies and how much they're investing into it and everything. And especially now, it's very interesting. Like, unless you work for some of the big, in my space, in the fintech industry, but in any technology industry, like, there's a lot of ways to reach out to people now, better than ever before. Like, I see it all day long. People are on Instagram or they're on Twitter, and they're like, hey, I need somebody that specializes in this API. And some kid on their couch is like, yo, I'll do it. And they're doing it for a fraction of the cost. So I think for technology, it's like, have a clear vision of what you want it to do. And then you've got to take the time to figure out what the elements of that are. And I think a lot of people get tripped up. They'll go to one technology person and be like, well, build all this. And that's where you get hit with that massive number. Because I'll use like a building analogy. Like, it's kind of like a J&G or something, right? Like, you've got a contractor, and then they're outsourcing all those parts. So my advice, if you're going to leverage technology, is don't be intimidated. Don't go to one source. Find out the pieces you need, and you'd be surprised how, like, social media and everything, you can put it out there to the universe, and you'll find people that can do it for a fraction of the cost.
Would I be right in saying that if you were to give a message to our membership today, it would be to invest in tech? Can we tell them that?
No, do you mean like financially invest, as in like stocks or stuff, or like double down?
I mean,
on their technology?
financially, time, anything. I think this is a big turning point for a lot of people's businesses, and they're going to have to make some decisions. what path they're going to find themselves going down. And we hear all the time that that technology is obviously going to be a big part of that. So I sort of keep pushing that on you, but.
Yeah, no worries. No, I think important things and reading some updates and obviously trying to keep in touch with everyone. I think a good example of people hear tech, and tech is such like a buzzword, right? People think sophistication and everything else. Tech is as simple as, how is your social presence right now? Like maybe it wasn't important before because you were an amazing, I don't know, you were a bakery or something and people were flooding in no matter what, you didn't need that presence. Well, now people have got to embrace technology from a social media standpoint to make sure you've got an identity, but then you've also got to pivot for maybe things like online ordering, right? Forms and shopping carts and integrating them into your website. You've got to do it for the first time ever. And then pivoting, I've seen a lot of home delivery happening in Brandon now too. So yes, I think technology, the best part about that, and I think the good news is when people hear tech, they think sophistication. This is just like, it's kind of like a basic checklist of stuff that luckily you got away with before, and they're cheap and easy things to start integrating, but now they're critical. If you don't have a social presence, you're going to be invisible until this rides out.
Good answer. Thank you. Can you tell us about someone in your life that has been a change maker and that's inspired you? Where do you find inspiration? Is there one person you can specifically look back to? In your late 20s there, you talk about when you were 29 and took on a job at 100% commission to sell mortgages. Is there a person there that you can tell us about?
You know what, there wasn't anything. I just knew, so I'll answer this two parts. So as far as like back then going in commission sales and everything, I was always kind of broken when it came to school, and I was horrible to I was a horrible employee, and I knew that from a very, very young age. Like even no matter who I worked for, I remember I worked for RBC at one point, and I worked in a division of their tech and everything, and I always questioned. I couldn't just shut up and do the work they were paying me to do. I was constantly thinking of like, yeah, but if we did this, it would be easier. And my mind just always worked that way. And I found out it was very it was abrasive. I was also always aware that I wasn't afraid to work. Like I'll work long hours and everything else. And if anyone's seen my social, you know the craziness that I go through. So that was always there. And like a 9 to 5 just was never appealing. Now, I will tell you, the person you asked me, is there somebody in particular, like a change maker or something like that? And it popped up in my head right away. People like Katrina Sigurdsson. Honestly, with Party Pros, we know what happened with Party Pros recently. She did a beautiful announcement, but like I had chimed in there on a post, and like that is an ideal change maker. I remember the early days. Like one of their first jobs, we had this rickety chair. We had this like chair trolley, and it was broken, and it was like the chairs were awful, and like you had to park so far away, and you had to pull this thing across. And I remember doing that with Sean Sigurdsson. We're just like, this is brutal. Why did these people do this before? And you guys saw it firsthand. And like Kirsten worked with Katrina for a lot of years, hand in hand. But like that's a change maker. Every single time they did something, they stopped and reevaluated. And sure enough, when they came back to the stage, it was different and it was better, right? And that's that voice, right? Like they never settle. Now, Sean Sigurdsson tells it completely differently, where he's like, yeah, she'd say yes, and then be my problem to figure out or whatever. But that spirit of it could always be better, that was somebody that's constantly inspired me, that I think is relatable to all of us.
Kind of runs right into the next question here, but I actually read a good blog this morning from a good friend of mine, and it got me motivated for today. And I know we're all having trouble finding motivation these days, because I mean, we're all having a difficult time in our businesses and in our personal world, and just watching what's going on in the world around us. But what motivates you? What wakes up Chris Turcotte in the morning, and how do you harness that, and how can we borrow some?
Well, you know what, it's shifted a lot, and I think this is relatable for a lot of people. So mine, unfortunately, and the reason I don't talk about it a lot is it isn't something that is marketable. And you're never, if you follow my social media for the next 20 years, I'm never going to sell something or do these steps and you're going to get motivated. The reason I don't talk about what motivates me is I go back to the term of like, I'm kind of broken. Like when my dad passed away and my mom kind of tanked out there, I went into a survival mode that nobody in grade 11 should have to go into. I had nobody. There was no family whatsoever. In that moment, I either ended it all or I had to figure it out, right? And that survival tactic, and especially when mom died, I realized it was all on me. There was no rich uncle that was going to cash out, that was going to help me out, nothing like that. It was all up to me. So it was bred into me. I think what everyone can do for motivation right now, stop trying to be motivated. Like, I think that is the most mentally unhealthy thing we can do to ourselves right now. And I see it everywhere. People are like, man, I haven't worked out during this pandemic. You know what? If you haven't worked out, who cares? Here's advice I will give. I'd start working on some discipline and really, really simple stuff of like, if you're worried about your fitness, don't beat yourself up that you didn't do a 1 hour workout and you haven't worked out in 3 years. Drop to the floor and do 10 push-ups. And when you drop to the floor, Spencer, you've done it. You drop to the floor, you feel that little bit of a pump, right? The endorphins pop off. You're like, oh, cool. So my advice would be like, don't worry about being motivated. Try to be a little bit more disciplined and start really small. And every single time you accomplish a little small goal, I can't remember the book, but there's a saying that's like, make your bed in the morning. You should always wake up and make your bed in the morning, because right the first thing in the morning, you've already accomplished something. And that momentum and the little hit of dopamine you get from accomplishing that task will carry out throughout the day. So don't worry about being motivated. Start figuring out how you can be disciplined and put in a little tiny regimen, and it'll take care of itself.
That's such good advice. I hope, are we recording this, ladies? Because I'm going to have to watch this again. I know we are. This is always a good question. This one seems to come up every time, but I always like hearing about what you think your biggest mistake has been career-wise, and what you've learned from that, and how you've kind of moved forward. So could you tell us about your biggest mistake?
So 100%. And I'll be real. It's still my biggest mistake. I haven't figured out work-life balance at all. And what's interesting, what I have learned about it doesn't help me out at all. I'm not a very good friend. I'm really not. Like, if I'm being completely open, transparent with everyone for the sake of, I'm not a very good friend, because I go all in on work. So I'm not good at keeping up with people and everything else. And what I learned over the years, I used to beat myself up about it. I used to force myself to do it. But what I learned over time was just kind of to accept me, because when I realized when I did have downtime, I wanted to work. Like, no joke. Like, when I have spare time, like I'll cover it on my Instagram right now and then. Like, if I get spare time, I don't think like, oh, cool, I can go fishing. I'm like, oh man, I could finally work on that one thing I've always wanted to take a deep dive on. So I think my fault, I haven't really fixed it yet, but I think what I've really been doing is I've been mastering figuring out who I am and becoming okay with it over the years. A recent hack on what I'm doing to improve that is the iPhone update. So now you can add people to the top. If anyone that has an iPhone, you can add like your favorite 9 to the top. So I've done that personally, and that is I've actually never even said this on any content or anything. I've done that now because that's my reminder of, hey, idiot, you have 9 important people there. Reach out at least a couple times a week and keep that active.
We have a lot of people probably on the call right now that that are going through some similar situations to what you've gone through in your life. Maybe not quite to the extent, but loss of a business or a family member, a job, a relationship, whatever it may be. But is there anything that you can suggest to remain focused and not fall into a routine of any type of sadness or depression? Because it's something we hear a lot of from our members right now, and a lot of the roundtables that we have is the mental health issue that doesn't seem to get spoken about enough as kind of a side effect of what's going on with the pandemic. Is there anything that you can suggest for those people that are out there that might be listening?
Yes, so I wouldn't say there's any particular tactic, but what I can definitely say is maybe just a mindset. And I trust me, I appreciate that this doesn't help in the moment. But for a lot of people, especially with the chamber, we're obviously all entrepreneurs. Your business is your baby, and when it is suffering, that is like a loss. It's got its own identity. That is a loss, and that's something that unfortunately I am really familiar with. And the advice I would give is like, even in the moment, and it's going to feel crushing. And the thing I get from a lot of people is like, they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I hope in the talk today in my story, it's like, even in the moments when it doesn't seem like it, I've now learned that no matter how it feels at the moment, it's going to be okay with time. So the advice I can give is like, and I know that doesn't fix anything. I know that doesn't bring money back into the account, but I would cling to the fact that, you know what, 3-4 years from now, you're going to look back at this and you're going to realize you got through it. So in the meantime, lean into your support system, right? Lean all the way into the Chamber of Commerce. Like these guys and the content that they're putting out and the level of support they're offering, like I'll crap on my own city. Like, I don't even know where to find the Vancouver Chamber of Commerce. They have no social presence. Like, I don't even have a hot clue. So, well, I guess my advice is like more of a coping mechanism, but what you could do to get through it is lean into the people around you. But one thing I know, and I've had some of the hardest hardships somehow, and I don't even understand why, it does get better in time, no matter what happens.
We're getting close to the hour here, but I do have, I have an important question I want to ask, and then we'll get to any kind of closing thoughts from you, Chris. But if you were to transplant yourself into the shoes of a Manitoba business owner right now, and of course we're code red right across the province, what would you do if you were a business owner in Manitoba and you weren't able to open your doors right now? What would be your next move?
Oh, that's a tough one. We're code red here in BC too, by the way. The only reason I came into the office is I have 2 little kids at home and I can't focus. This is going to be, and this is the problem with being known for being abrupt and just transparent to a fault. The advice I would give if I'm forced to close and I need to be open goes back to live in the fact that just because you have a business, there might be other ways to pivot. And I'm seeing it now very, very slowly where people had these businesses and they're holding on because it's my business. And I'm not promoting going out of business or anything like that. But I've seen a few close friends in Brandon that clung to a business way too long, refinanced the house and everything to keep pumping in, to keep everything going. And then in the end, they ended up pivoting to an employable job. And now they're finally starting to catch up. I'm not promoting all I know is entrepreneurship, but for mental health, for well-being and everything else, when this blows out, you built your business once before. The best thing about Brandon is reputation, right? If you're very good at what you do, guess what? When this blows over, if you're closed and you reopen, people know who you are. So the advice would be is really analyze, is this a pride? Do you need to stay open? If you have leases and overhead and everything else, I totally get that. But I can think of a few friends in Brandon that clung on for the sole purpose of pride. They're now working, they're now making equal to income, and they are very, very talented, and their reputation in Brandon is strong. They're going to be able to go back and reopen it all and thrive again.
Chris, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. And like I had mentioned when we got into the Q&A here, I think it's incredible timing for the situation a lot of us find ourselves in out here in Manitoba. And it's so fitting that you had your career start up here in Brandon. So again, thank you very much. And I would encourage everybody out there to follow Chris on social media. You can get all the handles from Aleeks down at the Chamber or on the Chamber social media. They'll be on there to be shared. It's absolutely incredible having you on today, Chris. So again, thank you very much. And another big thank you to today's sponsors, Westman Communications Business Solutions, and to today's session sponsor, Assiniboine Community College, and of course, everyone that's tuned into our Fall 2020 Speaker Series. Stay tuned on the announcements for the Winter Speaker Series coming to you in the new year. And before I do let everyone get back to their busy afternoons, remember, during this time, if you can, order from a local restaurant or cafe and follow all your favorite shops on social media. A lot of these businesses are now selling their products on new websites or on Facebook. Some are offering free local delivery and most are offering curbside pickup. And as you'll find referenced in our support local checklist, buy gift cards for the future from your favorite retailers, flower shops, toy stores, bookstores, boutiques, spas. If you learn of a unique promotion, please share it on social media. It's more important than ever. And I'll repeat the same thing that I said the other day. I need everyone to join me in my optimism that there is hope on the horizon. And I truly believe that these are our hardest days and there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel. So stay home, stay safe, and support local online. Thank you guys very much. Have a good afternoon.